I remember I've got the right title. Ooh. Right. Good afternoon, everyone. Hello. For those of you who think that you're going to something else, we're going to talk for the next 20 minutes about coaching, mentoring, and the development of the next leaders. If that isn't what you want to hear, go somewhere else. If it is, please stay with myself and Graham. So, hopefully you're having a really good conference so far, and by now I'm hoping you've eaten, because food is not served after 2. So if you haven't eaten now, you might want to miss this and go and get some food. Okay, I would like to introduce you to Graham.
Good afternoon.
This is Graham Horseley. We have spelt his name incorrectly on the slide, so my apologies for that. Graham is the Methodist Connexional Fresh Expressions Missioner. Don't try and say that late at night. And Graham, we're going to talk more about coaching than anything else. Tell me, why are you a coach?
Why am I a coach? I think there's 2 reasons, really. The first is that from fairly early on, as a kind of heathen who got converted as a teenager, came into the church and entered the ministry fairly young, I knew I needed a lot of help. And so I spent all my adult life looking for people to help me. And so it seemed only fair at some point to start giving it back. And then in 2000, when I became the evangelism person for the Methodist Church, I looked at all the training things that had been published and were sitting in cupboards in vestries in churches around Britain and thought, I'm not going to add to that pile of paper. Let's actually train leaders, which meant doing coaching, not courses.
Excellent. Thank you. And I am Mads Morgan. I am Pioneer Development Worker for the Diocese of Leicester, and I carry the coaching lead in our diocese. I am going to give a little fuller explanation as to my coaching journey as part of this introduction to coaching, mentoring, and developing leaders. But first of all, we wanted to just talk you through a tiny bit of theory. I'm hoping that you can see that slide fairly well. I think what tends to happen, if we start the journey on the left-hand side of the slide, down in the bottom corner, what tends to happen when we think about developing is we go straight to tutoring. What course can I do to learn how to be a pioneer? Can I just share a little secret with you? There is no single course that you can do to learn how to be a pioneer. There's lots of really helpful tutoring, so things like MSM and other stuff that we've got around the room, CMS, we've got CPL, we've got all kinds of things, but there is no single course that will show you everything you need to know about being a pioneer. Because actually we know it's only about 20% of our learning that we do in that kind of tutoring, telling, instructing environment. Something that I was involved with for years was mentoring. And mentoring is kind of the next step, and Graham's going to go on to talk a little bit more about the difference in mentoring and coaching. But mentoring is the journeying alongside with someone. So offering guidance, giving feedback. It's usually in a field where you yourself are a little more experienced. Excuse me. What we're going to be talking about mostly is coaching. Now, when you use the word coaching, I'm aware that lots of things spring into people's minds. Coaching is quite a cool, hip way of learning at the moment, and it's used in lots and lots of different environments. Both Graham and I, well, Graham is an accredited coach, I'm on my way to being accredited as a coach. But coaching is much more about the questions, the reflections, and actually just helping someone learn from their own experiences. The learning journey needs to include all of these. But today we're focusing specifically on mentoring and more specifically on coaching. So, Graham, tell us a little bit about the difference between coaching and mentoring.
Okay, Keith Webb of Creative Results Management, who did quite a lot of my coaching training, he puts it very simply when he says, mentors put in, coaches draw out. Now, you can only put in what you know about. So mentoring is absolutely brilliant in a situation where there are systems and where people have been there, done it, got the t-shirt. So that, for instance, if the fire alarm goes off in the next 2 minutes, which it's not planned to, you don't really want someone standing at the front saying, now, what do you think we should do next? It really helps if someone stands up the front who's actually had the training and says, go out of that door now, please. Mentors put in out of their own experience. Now, good mentors do not expect people that they're mentoring to become like them. Good mentors expect people to become themselves, but by learning from their experience. But there's a real drawback with mentoring, which I can best explain by a holiday I went on in 2003. I know it was 2003 because I do like the odd glass of wine.
Do you?
And we were in Burgundy in 2003, and we went to a wine tasting led by a young, ambitious master of wine in Beaune. And if you know anything about wine, you know that 2003 was the hottest year in history in winemaking. And this guy said, this year, he said, I keep going to the old winemakers and I say, what do you do when it gets as hot as this? And they say to me, I don't know, it's never been as hot as this. Does that sound like pioneering? Mentors can help you to go where they've been. Nobody can help you to go where nobody's been. And so if you're pioneering, you need someone who's going to draw out of you the skills that you need to go somewhere that neither you or they have ever been. That's stolen from Vincent Donovan, if you didn't recognize the quote. And to do that, it's all about asking good questions, not about offering good advice. And I think in the church, we're not brilliant at the culture of coaching. I think it's growing rapidly, and I'm really pleased about that. But I think in the worlds of business and the world of sport, it's been the way for a long time that the best people get coaches. In business, the worst people get the sack, the best people get the coaches. In the church, the worst people get the coaches. And so we've got into this culture where if someone comes along and says, can I help? Your automatic reaction is, oh gosh, am I that bad? Rather than, am I so good that you want to help? And I think that's the change that we need to see happening in our church cultures, so that our high flyers are the ones who get the most help. And it's quite interesting, so in the Methodist church where I work, if you want to be a Methodist pioneer, coaching is part of the package. I know we're going to be giving Kerry Thorpe a plug in a minute, but I'll give you one early because I know in Kerry's diocese in Canterbury, if you get funding for a mission project, you get a coach. Because you're going to deliver better if you have a coach. And that's the kind of culture that we're working towards. Are we on to stories now?
Yes, you go to stories now, Graham.
Okay, I couldn't resist. Matt said it would help if we ended by both telling a story of how coaching had helped us, and I thought this is a kind of opportunity for me to brag, really. Because in 2010, when I stopped, I used to compete nationally windsurfing, racing longboards. And when I retired, I was ranked number 8 in the country, which is kind of almost worth an ooh after lunch.
They're listening.
But they did, yeah. They're even awake, which is even better. But when I first started windsurfing, I'm not sure whether this was coaching or mentoring, you can tell me later. But my only aim in my first couple of regattas was to get round the course. I knew I was going to be last. I just wanted to finish. And after one of those events, when I'd come in about 20 minutes after everybody else had got on the beach, got changed and had a cup of coffee, I was chatting to one of the guys who'd been racing for a while, and I was really fed up, and I said, I'm just so bad at all this. And he said, simple thing to do. And I said, what's that? He said, at the end of a race, he said, don't think of everything you did wrong, that's too depressing. He said, think of one thing that you could have done better and work out how. And between now and the next regatta, work on that one thing. And if you do that consistently over the years, by 2010 you'll be ranked number 8 in the country. He didn't say that, but if he'd been prophetic, he would have done.
I wanted to share a little bit about the coaching journey that I've been on. A quote from Claire Pedrick, who is, she is 3D coaching. 3D coaching have worked with our diocese quite a lot in helping us to have transformational conversations. And this is, I asked her for a single liner on what is coaching, or what would you want people to know about coaching? And she said, dependency and discipleship don't mix. And if we can model a different kind of conversation with leaders that they will model with the people they lead, then we will be more able to grow people. There's quite a lot of words there, so I'll leave it behind me so you can reread it a couple of times and hopefully it'll make sense. Here in the Diocese of Leicester, we've done some quite extensive research thanks to the Church Army. And over the last 4 years, we have had 20 fresh expressions of church stop, which is okay, because everything has a life cycle. But we wanted to know more about why they were stopping. 2 of them, we don't know why they stopped, they just did. 4 of them stopped quite naturally. They had reached the end of their course, the people that they were there to work with and serve had moved on, and that was absolutely fine. The rest stopped because of leadership issues. Those issues included poor team formation, so teams of leaders falling out with each other. They included the leader moving on and nobody else picking up the reins. And they included burnout. So a lot of fresh expressions of church, a lot of new churches, which take a lot of energy and effort to start, and are quite often based around one person, are doomed to stop early and hopefully not do too much damage. So what do we learn from that? What we've tried to learn from it is around the coaching culture. So the idea is that there are many coaches in our diocese, and we can go and work with the pioneers who can see what needs to happen, who are really excited about what needs to happen. And we can help them through coaching and through showing them some of the techniques and skills of coaching, how to work with an apprentice. So we encourage all of the pioneers that we have to work with an apprentice, because this is about leadership development. And if we are going to see 320 fresh expressions of church in the Diocese of Leicester by 2030, the only way we're going to do this is by working with pioneers, working with their apprentices, and their apprentices can have apprentices. But it's tooling people up with the way in which we can develop an apprentice culture. And the way we do that is we ask really good questions. But really good questions must be followed, this is going to sound really obvious, but I'm going to say it. Really good questions must be followed by listening to the answer. I think sometimes we can formulate a really good question, but actually while someone's answering, are we not creating the next question in our head? Are we not thinking about the next part of the conversation? And coaching is about being able to be in that safe space where actually you can ask the really good question and you can take the space required to hear the answer. Because only by really hearing that answer do you know what you can ask next. Because what happens is we get to a problem and we get stuck. So we get an issue and we get stuck. And I could go and I could say, well, I think you should try this. How about that? But then nobody's learning. Nobody's developing. You're just taking something that would be my idea. So when it goes wrong, it's my fault, not yours. Coaching is about walking alongside and helping them get unstuck so that we can get to an environment which is not dependent upon your relationship with someone else or my relationship with someone who's mentoring me. Dependency and discipleship don't mix. And I would just reflect on the way in which Jesus spoke to his disciples and invite you to take a look through the Gospels and see how many questions he directly answered and how many he answered with a question to help his disciples think. So, I realise that we haven't spoken for the full time and I'm not going to stretch it out. Graham, was there anything else that you wanted to say?
Yeah, I think a quick guide to the answer, whether you're coaching or not, is there's lots of different versions of the 20 rule, but if you're spending 20% of the time talking and 80% of the time listening, you're moving towards a coaching way of operating. If you want a more natural illustration of why that was probably God's plan right from the beginning, why did God give you 2 ears and 1 mouth?
Okay, so at 2 o'clock, Graham and I will be in the Wycliffe room in St Martin's House. We will do a consensus around the room to see what people would like to cover. But something that is on offer, if you might be interested, is I am happy to do a live coaching session. Because when we talk about coaching, you're like, that's fine, but what do you mean? I am happy to do a live coaching session in the room for about 10 minutes, and then we can talk about what that looked like. It will be quite a short coaching session, but it will be quite structured. And I'll be looking for someone in the room who wants 10 minutes worth of coaching around a short, simple subject that might help them move on to their next stage of thinking. And we'll do that in front of everybody. But what people will be doing is they won't be looking at the person who's being coached. I'll be asking you to look at the questions that I'm asking so that we can look at the structure of how that looks. So if you don't think you've ever experienced coaching, here is your opportunity to experience just a little taste of what it might be. So we'll be in there at 2 o'clock, so you've got some time to grab a coffee and come over. I think here in the cathedral next, we have multi-generational church, which is being with Martin Payne from Message Church National Team, and we've got Louise and Mike from our diocesan offices here. But we will see you in the Wycliffe at 2 o'clock if you want to carry on that conversation. Thank you.
Yeah. And also a reminder that if you're wanting advice on coaching or mission accompaniment, Kerry and Eunice over here are part of the programme as consultants. So they're over there on my right, hiding behind the pulpit. So do talk to Kerry and Eunice at any time during the day about coaching and mission accompaniment. They'll be glad to have a chat with you.
Thank you very much.